Before we get into the episode proper, if everyone could just take a moment and go on to their podcatcher of choice and either give us 5-star rating, leave us a review. Again, we'll read those out on the podcast. Or even go to Spotify, give us a follow. Also, if you know someone who loves Survivor as much as you do, tell them about us, tell them to give us a listen. If everybody does that, we grow by double. That's just math. Now, on to the episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by critiquing and criticizing and adulating when necessary current and former players of Survivor. And today I am very excited to be going over the pre-merge of Season 18 Tocantins. I am one of your three wonderful co-hosts, Derek Kubicek, and I am joined by two fabulous co-hosts.
I'm Ryan Stacy, your resident Survivor superfan. You knows everything there is to know about Survivor, and definitely everything about everything else, too, probably.
And I'm Josh Wessler. I'm a near superfan. We're almost there. I only have
season and a
half.
Yeah,
like a season and a half left to watch. I promise we're getting there, but I will then consider myself a true superfan once I've watched every season of Survivor.
And then on these Rewind series, as you all know, probably by now, I'm the guy who hasn't seen these old seasons. Probably would have watched all these seasons by now, but I like to keep it slow and keep it true and honest for you guys. So I knew almost nothing going into Tocantins blindly. After I saw a cast list, there are a few things that I'll be able to talk about, I think, a little bit, but some of that might be saved for our post-merge discussion as well. But as always, I try to remain as unbiased as I can, and most of the A to B destination journey, I don't really know. So I'm excited to talk about those elements.
The point of this podcast is we are not busy people, apparently. We have time to watch every season of Survivor. You might not. And you kind of have to pick and choose which seasons you're going to watch. So we're here to tell you which seasons are must-watch Survivor, even though we would like it if you'd watch all of them. So, before we get any spoilers, Survivor Tocantins. We're through the pre-merge. We're halfway done. Is this must-watch Survivor?
My thought on Tocantins through the pre-merge, it's probably one of the first times that I almost want to balk or bunt to you, Ryan, because we get a new game mechanic with regards to Exile Island that I think is a very interesting twist on how we've done it up through Gabon. And I don't know if that's enough of a change in the game mechanic to make it must watch. I don't know how useful it is through the last couple seasons of the teens and through the 20s and stuff like that. And you probably can't talk about that, so as not to spoil me.
I think I can talk about this a little bit.
Sure. So I'm going to balk a little bit, but on the entertainment side alone, I'm going to say that it probably was not, but I'm going to, just lob it to you for gameplay.
So Exile Island is interesting. This is the last time for a very long time we're going to have Exile Island. I think Survivor realized they kind of ran its course with it. There's only so much you can do. We're going to get it one more time, and that is just because at the last minute, they were going to do another season with Redemption Island. And this was the second Blood vs. Water season, San Juan del Sur. They were going to do Redemption Island. They were all set to do Redemption Island. Mike White, Ned Schneebly himself, who is a friend of Jeff Probst, CBS reality star, director, actor. He was in 2 seasons of The Amazing Race, future Survivor contestant. Before he was on Survivor, he was hanging out with Jeff Probst and talking about, they're getting ready to go out to do the next season. And Jeff was mentioned they were going to do Redemption Island again. And Mike White goes, "Oh, you're going to do that again?" And Jeff's like, "My famous celebrity friend doesn't like Redemption Island? Oh, we can't do it anymore. We're going to scrap it, and we'll do Exile Island instead." I wish I was joking, but that's what happened.
Mike White, tell him about Edge of Extinction.
Yeah. Mike White,
I couldn't think of what he was even called now.
So Mike White saved us from another Redemption Island, and we got Exile Island again, which I'll definitely take Exile Island over Redemption Island every day of the week. But I'm fine. This is the last time we're going to get it for a long time, and I'm fine with it. But in terms of how relevant is it to your game, not really.
Yeah, I think if you just listen to this podcast, we'll be able to explain the mechanic that I don't want to say is exploited, because I guess we haven't quite seen anything through, but we can talk about it here. So I'm going to say no, not must watch, just based on what you're telling me.
I'm going to agree. I don't think it's must watch Survivor, but I think it's fun Survivor.
It is. And baseline Survivor, as I think all three of us agree, is very, very good television. I would have you watch the pre-merge of Tocantins before I would have you watch most other shows. So watch it if you love Survivor, but if you're picking and choosing, probably not.
Yeah, and for me, I would have watched Tocantins about 2.5 years ago at this point. And the thing that I remember the most from it isn't necessarily what goes on during the season. It's more the people of the season. And when something like that happens, I would usually default more to the post-emerge, because honestly, I don't really remember a whole lot of the like specific events that happen here in the pre-merge. So I'm going to fall on the side of not must-watch Survivor. Recommend watching, but not must-watch. And we'll see if I change my mind for the post-merge. But that's usually where I land when it's a likable cast.
I think that's really fair. So spoiler alert, from here on out, we're going to be spoiling the entire pre-merge. We're not going to spoil who wins because Derek hasn't seen that yet. So just the pre-merge, spoiler alert. All right, get out of here. 3, 2, 1. I don't really have anything spoilery to say.
No spoilers.
Yeah,
Coach and Tyson are awesome.
Yeah, the only thing that I can say is that there are a couple players that I do recognize. And I think there's one that I've been leading up to in previous podcasts for a while. I was like, when is this coach guy going to show up? Because I know the dude plays a couple times. I'm not sure if it's 2. I'm not sure if it's 3. But there aren't very many seasons that I haven't seen now. So I knew he had to come eventually. And so when I'm seeing the title screen, I actually think I saw him in the back of the truck. I'm like, okay, I know who you are. I've seen you play the trombone on TikTok and on Twitter. So like, or maybe it's the trumpet. I don't know. But I was like, there he is. And then, of course, young Tyson, which, I mean, I've seen a different season that has Tyson on it. So I was familiar with Tyson and a couple other players. So it was nice to see some familiar faces. Like, we're starting to get into the era where I can see some beginnings that I'm familiar with. So that made me more excited for the season than maybe someone going in for the first time chronologically would be. Because they'd be like, oh, this coach guy. Oh, this Tyson guy, he's kind of funny. Coach is kind of an alpha, yada, yada. So that's all I really know. And I will also disclose here that I'm 99.9% sure I know who wins the season. But we will save that for next time.
So let's go over the cast. Before we do, though, every time we do a newbie season, Josh and I always play a little game just to take a look at the cast. Let's see how many people he remembers. He got 4 out of 16 correct here, which in there exactly the 4 you would expect.
And I should have gotten a couple more, but as is tradition.
Is it the 4 that I probably could have gotten?
I'm not going to say.
That's fair.
All right, so the tribe, we have 2 tribes of 8. Last time we get a 16-person season. Very throwbacky. The Jalapao tribe in red, we have Carolina Eastwood, a bartender from California. JT Thomas, a cattle rancher from Alabama. Joe Dowdle, a real estate salesman from Texas. Sandy Bergen, a bus driver from Kentucky. Spencer Dunn, a student from Florida. Stephen Fishback, a corporate consultant from New York City. Sydney Wheeler, a model from San Diego. And Taj Johnson-George, a former pop star from Tennessee. Talking about Taj, former pop star, I never heard of her group that she was with, so I guess I can't speak to how big they were, but I am not an R&B guy, so I'm the wrong person to ask.
And I'm not allowed to Google any contestants, so...
Nor should you.
So I can't do any research. Turns me into a real hack when it comes to talking about this.
And then we have the Timbira tribe in black, are the only starting tribe with the color black. Only one.
Interesting.
We have Brendan Sanat, an entrepreneur from Colorado. Candace Smith, an attorney from Los Angeles. Coach Wade, a soccer coach from Missouri. Debbie Beebe, a middle school principal from Alabama. Aaron Lobdell, a hairstylist from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Gross.
The Wisconsin part, not Aaron.
Yeah, the Wisconsin part. Jerry Sims, a U.S. Army sergeant from South Carolina. Sierra Reed, a model from Los Angeles. And Tyson Apostle, a professional cyclist from Utah. Those are our 16. Great cast.
Yeah. And on that note, I agree with Josh that at least through the pre-merge, this cast kind of carries a fairly uneventful pre-merge very strongly. And I love seasons that are able to do that.
Yeah, if you want a good Survivor season, get a good cast. You
Yes.
don't really need to have much else. And Tocantins, I think, is proof of that. Like, it is a solidly entertaining season, and there's not much going on besides the cast.
And here's a tangent that it doesn't really pertain to the season, but it actually happened. So I've got a friend who I see once a week or so, and he listens to the podcast, and he asked me, does Survivor ever get boring to you? Do you want to see new things in Survivor? And I actually told him that I don't really like how we've turned into this advantage-reliant, big moves, big player kind of era of Survivor. And he said, well, don't you feel like it got a little boring with the old stuff? And I said, okay, maybe if you go back to your Borneo days where, the first super alliance to come along basically ends the game. I get that, but I do think the introduction of the hidden immunity idol kind of perfected this game, and now I just want good, different people, and I can become invested in their stories and just have them play for the million. It won't ever be boring because it's anthological. It's not like it's going to get tired. And plus, the people change as the times change. I mean, we talk about a season that aired in 2020 or 2019 being so different from 2001, so anyone ever gets that question asked to them, or if you have to try and defend Survivor, just talk about how if you get good people, the people will change with the times and they'll always be relevant, and it's still a fascinating story.
The only time I've ever been bored watching Survivor is if the cast sucks, and that's the only time I've ever been bored. And that's rare.
Right.
I can count on one hand the amount of time that's happening. I wouldn't fill up that hand.
Sure. So I just thought that story was relevant. It happened to me semi-recently, and I wanted to share it on the podcast because I don't think that Survivor gets stale, and I don't need the big fireworks all the time like we sometimes see in the 30s.
Well, and this is a great stretch of just like these seasons right now for something like that, where it's not insanely different or like a giant like theme each season that needs to carry it at all. It's a very, I would almost say pure version, like plus a couple of things.
Yeah. We're in the second of 4 eras of Survivor right now. Things are going to change, but I like where we're at.
I've really liked these stretch of seasons. I mean, even though I'm saying this isn't must watch, I haven't not enjoyed in a long time.
This era, in my opinion, the last season in the second era of Survivor is 21. So once we get to 22, I think we're in a new era and things are going to radically change. Bring down your hopes and expectations accordingly. All right, let's jump into these episodes, huh?
Let's do it.
Episode 1, let's get rid of the weak players before we even start. We have a marooning on a truck because we are out in the sticks in the middle of the Brazilian highlands. This is the last non-beach season we're going to have.
I was going to ask you about that. So this is our last inland one.
Yep.
So we've had Amazon, we've had Africa, and then we had Gabon.
Australia.
Oh, Australia, Gabon, and then now Tocantins?
Guatemala.
Wow, Guatemala.
Did you say China?
China?
Yeah, I suppose China kind of.
China's like marshy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Swamplands.
It ain't a beach.
But yeah, from here on out, it's beaches, beaches, beaches. The marooning, get what you can. Timbira gets all of the water and beans. Womp womp.
Yeah, the beans, the water maybe not so much,
Yeah.
because I think production has realized that you can't like dehydrate your cast.
You can't kill people.
You're not going to get good TV out of that.
Yeah.
But come on, beans, you got to get one of those.
There's a magical fruit.
the tootin' fruit. Tootin' beans.
Fartin' beans,
Fartin'
as Sandy
beans.
calls them. Those are good old fartin' beans. So immediately both tribes have to vote someone out. And Jalapal votes out Sandy. She's the oldest woman on the tribe. And Timbira votes out Sierra because she looked very sick. And it turns out she had strep throat. So
Yeah,
valid.
Credit to everybody except Sandy and Sierra. I think that on paper, this is about as good as you could have done with no notice.
And we were ridiculously close to like this being unanimous too.
yeah, it was high. You feel bad for Sandy and Sierra. That's rough. I don't like when Survivor does this kind of thing. It's not that bad, but this is something I don't like. Give people a chance. Like first impressions, I mean, yes, but they haven't been allowed to talk to each other yet.
Yeah.
When I think of first impressions, I think of your first conversation, not just like a glance at someone on a car ride.
Yeah, because we're going to get several times in the pre-merge where Coach is just talking like, I was sharing alpha eye glances with everyone on the truck, and Sierra just gave me bad vibes.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
But they're not getting voted out. What's actually going to happen is both Sandy and Sierra, they're getting a helicopter ride to their camp. Everyone else has take a multi-mile hike. I think like at least 3-mile hike.
Yeah, it was like a 4.5 hour, I think is what they said it was going to end up being.
However long it takes for that.
So not as bad as Guatemala, but
Yeah.
still not fun. But Sierra and Sandy get to skip that and just get a nice comfy ride straight to camp. On Jalapao, JT becomes kind of the navigator, which we've talked about in the past. Not great. We don't like the leader navigation. I think JT does it about as well as he can. He doesn't really become the leader, but he's like, we're going to get lost if I don't do something.
Yeah, at least he wasn't like immediately right out of the gate just like, hey, give me this, like, because I'm going to be able to do it great. It was after they were struggling.
It was necessary.
And I think he even like shaved some time off because I think they drew a line on the map of how they were supposed to go. And he's like, if we just cut through here, we'll be there way faster. And he was right.
Yep.
So, I mean...
Because they got there when the sun was still up, unlike Timbira.
Right.
Jerry, who's in the military, he's a sergeant in the military, does not want the leadership role, even though naturally in real life he is. He's like, nope, no thank you. You know who does want that role? Coach.
His name rhymes with Poach?
Yep. A real poached egg, this guy. Well, actually more like a scrambled egg. Coach Wade, his game plan, he wants to change Survivor. He wants to take all of the strong people to the end to duke it out. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron is his mantra.
And he's talking to Brendan about this on the hike. And Brendan's like, why would you tell me this? I don't believe you.
He's like a Madagascar penguin. Just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
I mean, if you don't know this guy's personality, which there's no reason that you actually should, this is the exact thing that you would think that someone is just full of crap about.
Yeah. Yeah, don't buy this for a second. Good for Brendan. Coach, man, what a guy this is.
He is a guy.
Yeah. Brendan does a good job here. I want to actually say it because, I mean, Brendan is a bigger guy. He is a more fit guy. By having someone like Coach around, even if you're kind of like a bigger, like, you know, meat swing or whatever, this is the meat shield strategy. So, like, have the guys around. If he's inviting you, the strong male, into an alliance, you say yes.
Oh, yeah, say yes. And he does.
And I should probably say, since Coach has now gotten brought up for the first time, that when I first watched this season 2.5 years ago, I was not the biggest Coach fan.
I remember this. I was devastated.
Because I was consistently messaging Ryan while I was watching through all these old seasons. And I just bashed the hell out of Coach.
I mean, you can do that and still love him like I do.
Yeah, and I will say he has definitely grown on me since. But I really couldn't stand him this entire first season. So whenever I have any like reactions to Coach, that is why.
He's the best. Sandy and Sierra, they're given the choice. Hey, you can either get started on your camp and get some work done, or you can go looking for an idol. The idol is only good for your first tribal council. Good luck! Sandy goes to look for the idol, but can't find it. And it doesn't help that her tribe gets to camp a lot faster than anticipated.
And we get a really funny moment, in my opinion, where she's debating out loud, what is a pace? And I'm just like, yeah, what is a pace, Alec? So,
because yeah, the clue is like, you know, there's part one of the clue, part two is like take this many paces, and Sandy doesn't know what a pace is, which, granted, isn't an exact unit of measurement.
It actually is. Not originally maybe, but it is 30 inches. So it is supposed to be like the casual length of an average height human. And I just looked this up because I was like, you know, what is a pace? Because when I think about this sort of thing, I think of Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one, when Jack Sparrow is looking for the rum buried on the island. He takes 4 monster paces away from the palm tree and then jumps on the trap door.
Yes.
That is not a pace. That is a big pace. So it's 30 inches. If you end up on Survivor and they bring this back, 30 inches, it's a casual, like, step.
Yeah, so break out your ruler.
Break out the ruler that they give you.
Yes.
Sandy does not find the idol. Sierra instead goes to work on the shelter to try and fix her first impression that was not very good. She does a great job. Basically built as good a shelter as you can with one person. And everyone is pretty happy with her except Coach. Coach is like, you know, she's a nice girl. She's still going first.
Well, like, he was happy with her. He's just like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
And I'm like, you know, it's still, I think, the right move to do a bit of both. You know, maybe go spend some time for idol, and then once you realize that it's buried and you're like, okay, I need to make sure I'm not doing nothing, especially after this, because now everyone who's watching this on TV knows if you get flown to camp first, you're probably going to be presented with an option.
Yeah. Now that we've done this twist a couple of times in Survivor, if you're ever in this position, work on the shelter. Work on the shelter, and then day 2 rolls around. Day 3, go find the idol. You can do both. You just do the shelter first, otherwise everyone will be suspicious of you.
Yeah, and I want to add an asterisk where, like, I think in modern Survivor, if you get sent out to camp ahead of time, everyone is just going to assume that you have a clue and you might have found the idol. So maybe in a more modern season, you know, you're past season 40 now, you're in your 41, 42, 43. I don't want to say that you should necessarily
I have
work
a solution for this.
You do? Okay. Let's go for it.
You're flown to camp, right? You get there and you're presented with the choice. Obviously look at the clue, but, you know, go for the shelter. You need to dilute this target. So everyone walks into camp and you're just straight up honest with them. Hey, I was given this choice. And, you know, obviously you have to play it a little bit by ear depending on, you know, the variables. But you could be like, hey, obviously there's an idol. I was given a clue for it. Maybe you tell them all the clue and just get this off your back as much as you can. Maybe don't tell them about the clue. You know, you play it by ear, but say, hey, I just worked on the shelter. Look how good a job I did. I figured you guys would all, like, assume I would go for the idol, but, like, I threw myself into this. And just be as honest as you can be. And then, you know, mix it up as needed.
And then another good way to handle this is if you do find the idol, just be like, I'm going to play this at the first tribal council, and then you burn it.
Yeah.
Whether you need it or not. And then, if you want to be tricky about it and save it, probably don't do that because people are going to be like, oh, you shady. So, like, if you do find it, maybe just consider burning it at the first tribal and putting everyone on level playing ground. And it's kind of like forgiveness for getting voted out or whatever, or like nominated to be sent forward. So there are ways to navigate these waters.
And this is a little bit of an outlier too, just because didn't say that this one is only good for the first tribal.
Yeah.
Which I would assume that wouldn't really be the case in Modern Survivor.
Yeah. The next time we do this, that isn't the case. It's just regular idol.
So it devalues it a bit.
Though we do have idols with expiration dates in, I think, 38, 39,
Yes,
and 40.
that's true.
And I do like that.
Yes. Yep. So maybe who knows?
Yes.
It's almost like it depends.
It's almost like it depends. So on Jalapao, Carolina is very bossy and annoys everyone. And apparently she got a very positive edit compared to how it actually was living with her. Yeah.
She didn't get a very positive edit.
That's the joke.
Yep.
But accurate. I've heard some interviews with people who were on this tribe. They're like, she is a very nice person. It was miserable to live with her.
So all we can say for advice on this is don't do that.
Yeah. Go to the immunity challenge. Sandy kind of like redeems herself. She's great in the immunity challenge. They don't end up winning, but it's not because of Sandy. Sandy's a tank.
Yeah.
But Timbira manages to win. So everybody gets back to camp, and they had all been planning on voting out Sandy just because, that's how it goes. But everybody's like, I don't want to vote out Sandy. I like Sandy.
What are we doing here?
7 votes Carolina, 1 vote Sandy. That's what we're doing here.
It's a real light bulb moment. Just wait a second.
And this is the right move. If you can unanimously get everyone to change the vote just because they like someone else more, yeah, go for it. And also, you kept the stronger challenge person. Great.
It's the most important part right now.
Yeah.
And she got a chance to prove it, and she did.
Best player, Josh. Who was the best player of the first episode?
I gave it to Spencer. We didn't really mention it, but he was kind of the first push in that direction to switch the vote over from Sandy to Carolina. So I'm going to give him a lot of credit for that.
I ended up saying Tyson, and that's because in pre-merge, especially when it comes to that first vote, I like it when you can win and have a little bit more time to try and figure out where you stand with your tribe. And he seems to be good on terms with everyone. He's not going to be targeted by coach just because, he's a young, fit male. So just by his very demographic, he's in an okay standing on his tribe, and Timbira wins. So I said Tyson.
I'm siding with Josh on this one handily. I don't really like your reasoning, but it doesn't matter.
I'm allowed to have it.
You're allowed to have it. I don't really like it. Spencer is also my best because he started the movement against Carolina. How about worst player?
This was tough just because she did redeem herself, but I am going to give it to Sandy just because she left a pretty bad impression on the tribe. We saw 2 completely different sides here, one from Sierra and one from Sandy. On the approaches once they got to the beach, you could see the reaction to almost the entire tribe when they saw that Sierra had done such a good job building the shelter. And on the flip side, when Jalapao came back to camp and Sandy hadn't really done anything with the shelter, there was a pretty negative attitude towards her. And if it wasn't for Carolina, she'd be going home here. Yes, she redeemed herself, but there's nothing to say that she shouldn't be the next person to go.
Yeah, I agreed with Sandy. I thought it was kind of the worst of both worlds because first she gets kind of outed by her tribe right off the bat, and she kind of has a bad attitude about it, which, within her right. But then she chooses not to build the shelter and then doesn't even find the idol to boot. I would be remiss if I didn't at least give a dishonorable mention to JT for kind of taking up a leadership position, even though he didn't have to. Just let him get lost for a little while. And then also to Coach for at least... when he talks to Brendan's immediately like, okay, like, I'm gonna go with it, but like, this guy's a little off-putting. So,
sus.
So he's a little sus. So I'll give dishonorable mention to them, but ultimately I think Sandy rounds out as the worst.
The only reason I didn't give it to Coach is at least he has a strategy.
Yeah.
Like, he's super vocal about it, but at least there's something there.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the couple negatives that I noted across the board.
And I'm gonna agree with Sandy for everything I said. Plus, while she was looking for her idol, she ended up coming off as antisocial, which is not what you want to do in your first couple of days.
I did have that note as antisocial.
So, Sandy for sure. Let's get into winner picks. So, Derek, first time seeing this season, who is your winner pick?
Yeah, so I realized as I had been taking notes throughout this episode that my best player of the episode I accidentally conflated with my winner pick. So even though I didn't change it because I wanted to be true to what I was at the time, I want to say like Spencer is a good pick, I think, for best. But Tyson ended up being my winner pick, and the notes that I took for why he was the best player are things that he didn't necessarily do, but some of the things that he said and the position that he's in. So He's very cutthroat, at least in his confessionals. He's saying, like, I don't care if I have to destroy people's dreams. Awesome. He was good enough physically, but he's not like your Brendan or your Rupert looking, or like your, Tom looking. So he can be like that. The guy you don't expect to be as good as challenges as he is, but enough to get him through if his back is against the wall. And then Timbira just comes across as a stronger tribe in general. And Jalapao just seems like a big mess right now, so I didn't want to pick anyone from Jalapao. If I did, I think Steven had a couple good confessionals in episode 1, but that was about it. So I landed on Tyson, and there wasn't many people that I would have wanted to pick this season.
Josh, do you remember who your winner pick was from when you first watched this season?
I actually do.
Wow.
I know. And after this season, I've also written down all of them from here on out.
So no more just...
We are no longer in the dark with Josh's memory.
It's a new dawn on this, the Castaway Consultants. Josh knows some things.
The beginning of our written history?
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, technically, yeah.
At least Josh has written history.
Yeah. Even if there isn't a lot written down, there's still something.
And it's all in hieroglyphics. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. So, a couple of my finalists here that I noted, I did really like from Jalapao, Spencer, and JT, just because of their mindset and a couple of confessionals that they had. Timbira, the few people that I wrote down were Brendan, Tyson, and Aaron, mostly because of the personality side along with some confessionals. There wasn't a whole lot of gameplay here, so you're not really going off of a whole lot. My original pick from a couple years ago did end up being a little bit more of, I would say, a dark horse, like underdog one. I ended up going with Erin here. It was just more a couple of things that she had said during her confessionals, and the way that it made her seem at least knowledgeable on the game. But honestly, there wasn't a whole lot on top.
No, there wasn't. My winner pick from when I was a kid, and I would have been a freshman in high school when the season aired, I picked Brendan. And I stand by this pick. I really like the Brendan pick. Just because he seems like a competent guy, pretty normal dude in a tribe of weirdos, it turns out. And the thing I really like about him is when Coach presented him with his crackpot ideas, Brendan's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Don't trust you at all, but sure. And that's exactly what you do. So I really like Brendan's mentality there. So Brendan was my winner pick, and I stand by it.
Yeah, I think Brendan was on my short list. And I think one of the other reasons that I went with Tyson, I forgot to mention this just a couple seconds ago, I loved the juxtaposition of Tyson's goofiness with the tribe against how willing to do whatever it takes he is in his confessionals. And that's something that I always kind of look for in the edit. Like, can you be two-faced? Because you kind of need to be in Survivor. And so I like that. But I love the Brendan pick. And I like Aaron as a dark horse pick, too. Mm-hmm. So based on episode 1, I liked it.
I probably do the dark horse pick too often, but I like it.
Yeah, Josh is the kind of guy who goes to roulette. He's like 22 black. He doesn't just do red or black.
You gotta scatter it a little bit. Maybe add like one extra bet in there along with it. Why not? Have some fun. Live on the edge, Derek.
We'll throw a triad down here. It'll be great.
All right, so those are our winner picks. We'll see how they do. Episode 2: The poison apple needs to go. Don't eat the apple.
Don't eat the apple. James rolled over in a grave he was digging.
So Sierra tells Brendan about the idol. She hasn't found it yet, but she needs help to try and find it. And this seems like a really tough idol to find because she's not going to find it.
They dig a big hole.
Yep. So this is one of those rare instances where I don't mind so much that she tells him about the idol because, and this might be a little bit of hindsight, results-oriented thinking, but this was a tough idol to find. Neither one was found. Maybe get some help in this week and build some trust, and especially Sierra's coming in from such a crap position that I think it's okay that she does this.
Isn't this where they get caught and they turn into a fire pit?
Yes. 100%.
We'll get into that in a second. I wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on her telling Brendan about the idol.
Okay. Yeah, and I think you already touched on the most important part, is that Sierra not only was outed at the beginning, because I think she said that she had some kind of sore throat. She was calling it strep throat or whatever.
Yeah, it was strep throat.
She got voted out. She didn't have to make this 5-hour trek. And as miserable as that is, that's a bonding experience. I mean, Ryan, I remember doing a 5-hour out-of-our-way trip around the mountains when there were avalanches in our way.
Derek and our road trip got sidelined by an avalanche.
Like, that's a kind of a miserable experience on the whole, if you look at that on paper. But like, we bonded over that time.
Yeah.
Being in a van with Derek, that sounds miserable.
It was.
That's fair.
But Josh wasn't there, and so we're going to have to vote him out.
Yeah, makes
Right.
sense to me.
Like, you get to Denver, who are you going to vote out? Like, Josh, who flew over the mountains, you know? Probably. So
I deserve it.
So because Sierra wasn't there for this crucial bonding moment, you need something. And honestly, the only ammo you have is this clue that is so far useless on its own. And she picks a really good person. I think her read was great. I don't actually know that she could have had a better one on this tribe.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. Maybe Jerry.
Like, maybe Jerry, but, you know...
Top 2 for sure.
Yeah. Insofar as, like, best case scenario, I think getting the sane man is exactly what Sierra could have hoped for. So I do like the move in this instance. I think it's better if you can get an idol on your own, but you need to make social inroads first. I mean, the idol's only good once.
Right. They try to find it, but as they're digging a giant hole on the beach, Debbie walks up, and they pull off this lie. Underrated great lie in Survivor. They're all like, yeah, we're building a fire pit. We're going to have a bonfire on the beach. Debbie's like, oh, that's so fun. Oh, for cool. Even though she's from Alabama.
Debbie, you're a principal. I feel like you should know when people have that look in their eyes, like their hands in the cookie jar, and she's just like, oh, yay, bonfire. Like, maybe one too many years out of the classroom.
And Debbie, they all go back to camp, and Debbie's like, guys, guess what we're going to do? It's so fun. They built a bonfire pit on the beach. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. And Candace is like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah, Candace was a real stick in the beach.
So the titular poison apple of this tribe is Candace, it turns out, who wasn't in the first episode like at all. And she's going to have a very negative time on this show. The Candace has a super negative attitude about it, doesn't want to do it. Have fun, Candace. Everyone wants to have a bonfire. Go have a bonfire.
Come on.
Look at the fun we're having. Like, that's not even high-stress fun. Like, that's just go grab some wood and go burn
This is
things.
bonding. Come on.
It's fun to burn things, Candace.
You know, I'm starting to notice a trend, and Ryan, maybe you can help me out with this. Are attorneys bad at Survivor?
Are attorneys bad at Survivor?
Because the last time I'm thinking of this, what was it? Season 10, it was Palau. Because
Karen and Willard were both lawyers.
And then who was the first person who was not voted out, but the first
Jolanda?
Jolanda, she was an attorney, was she not?
Yep. She was an attorney, yep.
So this is like the second time in 18 seasons that an attorney has been like effectively like targeted first on their tribe.
But even beyond that, you know, Andrew Savage, attorney, not great at Survivor.
Not great at Survivor.
We're going to have a couple of future players. Chaos Cass, famous Survivor attorney.
Underrated player, I
Yep.
say, for Chaos Cass. I think she might be the best attorney Survivor that I
Nick
can
Wilson.
think of right now. Oh, that's right. I
But
forgot that
even Nick Wilson had a rough start.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe it's just the thing where lawyers aren't great at Survivor. Definitely don't tell anyone you're a lawyer if you go on Survivor. Yeah, that's interesting.
So I do not claim to speak for all attorneys at all, but
all attorneys.
Derek
suck.
speaks for all.
But if you are an attorney going out on Survivor, and not even just an attorney, I would say, you know, a medical doctor or, you know, a super academic or someone who's like at the top of their field, or, you know, an engineer or something like that, you have to be able to bring it like into a level that everybody can appreciate, and that includes the way you cross these social inroads.
Yep.
And I feel like oftentimes attorneys are very pushy and they're very forceful, and they need to be in their job.
I think the best, and this is a fictional example, but
Yeah, sure.
let's talk about the TV show Community for a second here. Put Jeff Winger on Survivor. He's going to make it to the first tribal council, but eventually it's going to go badly for him. Jeff Winger would be terrible at Survivor. But you put someone who, you know, more like a Troy or an Abed in there. I know anybody who doesn't listen to Community is going, what are you talking about? They're going to be better at Survivor. So Survivor is not just about, like, how high profile of a job you have. Obviously, you have to be intelligent to be a lawyer or a doctor, typically.
Yeah.
But that's not all it is.
And I would say that that's not even mostly
No.
what it is. That's why someone like, you know, Keith is able to go deep in Survivor anytime he plays.
Yeah. I would say emotional intelligence is better than just
Yes.
your IQ.
That's a really good way to put it. So I don't know why. I just feel like attorneys have not done well through 18 seasons, and I wanted to point it out.
Yeah, we'll track that. We'll keep an eye out for any other attorneys, and we'll talk about if they do well or not. Sierra ends up deciding to abandon the idol search. It's too risky, and it's only good for one tribal council. Okay.
And now you're going to have to dig under a fire.
Oh my god. So Candace and Coach get into a big fight about how to cook. Pro tip, don't do this. Just eat the dang food.
This is some season 2 level nonsense. We even have someone on this season named Jerry as well. Like, stop it.
Taj, at this point, that she's bonding with her tribe, which is important to do. But like we just talked about, you don't want to necessarily give away too much. Like, you don't want to reveal you're an attorney. You probably don't want to reveal you're a cop. You don't want to reveal that you're married to Eddie frickin' George.
Yeah. I mean...
This isn't something that anyone will just randomly recognize. I mean, you get the rogue, like, baseball or basketball player, like, where there's no reason why you might recognize them, but they're put on a season where one specific person is gonna out you. But when you're the spouse of one of these players, that's not something that someone's gonna recognize unless you're like famous.
Yeah, you need to go out with a plan. I mean, yeah, Gisele Bündchen is gonna have a hard time disguising that she's married to Tom Brady. But I mean, she's also Gisele Bündchen, right? Taj needed to go out with a better plan than this.
Oh, really simple. Don't say that you're married to Eddie George. Done.
Well, I mean,
make up a random job. I mean, wait, no, not make up. You have a job, I'm assuming, or at least you did in your past. If you no longer have a job, just say that's what you do.
Well, and they were talking about her husband. She's like, oh, he's a football analyst. And they're like, oh, have we heard of him? And he's like,
oh, no.
Wait, your last name is George. Eddie George? And she's like, oh, no.
Now, he was a Heisman winner.
Yeah.
I think that's correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big football guy, so like when I watch the season, I'm like, who the heck is Eddie George?
I mean, a pretty big NFL name too.
Yeah, but like Stephen Fishback is like, I don't know who Eddie George is, and I was in the same boat. I'm like, I don't know who Eddie George is. I know who Eddie George is more because of Survivor, as opposed to football.
That's so sad.
So I'm assuming this is a big deal.
It's not a nothing,
Sure.
and there are a lot of people going to be on Survivor who are familiar with sports. Now, if Taj were to go out today, I think there'd be lesser of a chance that people might recognize the name Eddie George.
I mean, yeah, Eddie George is a early 2000s name.
Exactly.
Immunity challenge. It's like water, they got to wrestle a little bit and toss a ball into like a basketball hoop kind of thing.
Okay, but before we just skip on by this...
Oh, I'm not going to skip on by it.
Good, because this might be the most hyped I've ever been for like a pre-merge immunity challenge ever.
I was just setting up what it was. One of the most memorable challenge moments, I think, in Survivor history. Sandy is wrestling with Aaron, undoes her bra strap, grabs on, holds on to it. It's like a cowboy riding a horse, and it's just like holding Aaron in place by her bra strap while Aaron's trying to hold her top up, and then Sandy just starts doing like a lasso cowboy, like yeah, bucking bronco kind of thing.
Ride like the wind, bullseye.
Completely takes Aaron out of the challenge, and it is so funny.
I love that moment. I will say the one that got me the most hype, because we were just talking about Taj. Let's bring her right back in. There was a part where she had this ball, and she's trucking up the sideline, and I think it might have been Candace is trying to tackle her, and she just gets stiff-armed and sent back to the Shadow Realm. And I was like, Taj, this is cool. I'm starving for football.
Eddie George taught her some moves.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking that he might have learned this from Taj.
That's how he's a Heisman.
I love football, and this was so fun to watch. So
it's a good challenge.
Maybe if you love football, this pre-merge isn't must-watch, but this is a must-watch challenge.
Jalapao wins immunity. They're going to send Exile Islands back in play, and they're going to choose Brendan to send to exile. Stupid. You send Sierra, the obvious person who was like exiled from her tribe already. Send her to exile. Maybe she'll get an idol. You guys don't know about the idol, but as far as you know, the idol's at Exile Island. Send Sierra. She's the obvious vote. Cause some chaos in the tribe.
And Jeff does say that you will get a clue to a hidden immunity idol on Exile. So like they are aware at this point. Sierra is the best move.
The other part of the season is when you get sent to exile, you get to drag someone from the winning tribe with you, and Brendan fakes Taj go with.
And this was the new mechanic that I was talking about at the top of the episode.
And then there's one more mechanic that really is not talked about because it doesn't come into play at all. But I want to talk about it. We'll get there in a second, though. Over on Jalapao, this is where JT kind of becomes the leader of the tribe, and he forms a tight bond/alliance with Steven. Good for them. Exile Island. There's 2 urns once you get there. And Exile Island's cool as hell. It's not an island. It is a giant sand dune in the middle of the highlands. Just massive sand dune. It's really cool. Each player gets to pick an urn. Brendan picks the correct one. Inside, there's 2 pieces of paper. One, a clue to the hidden immunity idol, which reveals they're hidden back at camp. There's one at each camp. They're not at Exile Island. So have fun, waste a couple of days here. But the other note, which is mentioned once basically, not mentioned again, but it was there every time, I guess. You have the ability to switch tribes.
The mutiny.
The mutiny, the single-player mutiny, single-serving mutiny. If you get this note, you are allowed to switch tribes. So we'll have to talk about this whenever we go to exile, because nobody's going to do it. I love this idea, so we'll definitely talk about it. It's very rare you should do this. The only time you should ever do this is if you know you are the bottom person.
Yes.
And just try and mix things up. It's the only time that should happen.
I forgot that this was an option
because they only talk.
Season.
Yeah, they only talk about it once, and it's with Brendan.
And I mean, especially if you like go back and you share this information with your tribe that this option is there, that can completely change who you send to exile.
Yep. So you got to be a little careful with that. Brendan declines to switch, obviously, and shares the clue with Taj because, of course, just especially because there's one in each tribe. Yeah, build this bond, share the clue.
No reason not to.
They want to get sent back to exile because the first clue is just like, oh, it's at your camp. Good luck.
Cool. That doesn't really narrow it down. Granted, it wasn't hiding too hard, but...
So their goal is to both get sent back to exile together and keep working together and find these clues and get the idols together. Good plan. I like it. Candace wants Coach out. She and Coach don't get along and is starting to scheme and plot about this. And Debbie's like, hey, Coach, Candace wants you out. And Coach is like, well, let's get rid of Candace. Tribal Council. It ends up being, shockingly, 7 votes for Candace, because we're led to believe it's Candace and Aaron versus everybody. But apparently what happened is there was some sort of falling out between Candace and Aaron between camp and Tribal Council, or right near the end of camp day. Candace tried to throw Aaron under the bus pretty hard or something. I don't really know the whole story here.
And they do not give it to us in the episode.
No. It ends up being, Aaron flips her vote, apparently pretty last minute. 7 votes for Candace, 1 vote for Sierra. This is a fine move since you got everybody on board to do this, and she must have really sucked to live with. Sierra also would have been fine if you decided to go that way.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly who said it, but someone said, it might have been Coach, addition by subtraction.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you have someone who's very openly scheming and plotting and against a high profile person like Coach, who, for a lot of people, like, hey, that takes a big target off of me. We can get rid of Coach kind of whenever we want.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep him around a while. Also, he's not a 0 in challenges. He's not very good in challenges, but like, if you're looking on paper, he's all right to hold for right now.
And Candace is finding challenges too. It's just her
she
personality sucks.
Yeah. Now we've got Carolina and Candace, both who were very much socially, it seems, on the outs with their tribe.
Derek, who do you got for best player of the episode?
I had Steven because he has this great alliance going with JT now, but he's not the leader of the tribe, and he played hero at the immunity challenge and ended up being the one who won it for Jalapao and ended up turning the momentum.
I had Brendan. He made an alliance with Sierra. He just had to stay on Timbir. I know it's like a no-duh choice, but it was a choice he made, and it was the right one. He shared his clue with Taj, and he eliminated Candace to save his ally Sierra, because Candace ended up switching her target from Coach to Sierra, and Sierra's an ally for him. So
yeah, and I did think that he navigated his situation pretty well, but I feel like who's rising more on their tribe, it was Steven, because he's got no reason to be with this cattle rancher farmer, but he's making his inroads socially, and he's doing well, and he has no target on his back from going to exile and having the clue. That's something that Brendan now has to try and shed.
But it's nothing he did. That was something that happened to him.
But if you've got something where it's like, okay, both people have done everything they can do, but one person got sent to exile and now has a clue to a hidden immunity idol, they have a bigger target on their back.
Okay, yes, he's got a bigger target on his back, but he also has an extra social relationship with Taj.
On a tribe that he's not on.
Yeah, but you gotta assume there's gonna be a tribe swap at some point.
You don't have to assume anything.
You should assume that there's going to be a tribe swap at some point. There might not be.
More often than not,
More often than not, in these seasons of Survivor, there is a tribe swap.
There's not going to be a tribe swap this season. That's not common.
It's not common at all.
So, anyway, Josh, you're the tiebreaker. For those of you who don't know, Josh watches the premiere episode, the merge episode, and the finale. For any episode he doesn't watch, he is the tiebreaker between Derek and myself.
Yeah, and I'm going to side with Ryan here, mostly just because I feel like a lot of the stuff that Steven did, Brendan also did, like, formed an alliance. Great, they both did that. That was really the only thing. Never mind. Otherwise, everything else I would say is a positive.
How about worst player?
So I kind of went back and forth between Aaron and Taj, just given the situation. I did end up falling onto Taj for this one just because she admitted that her husband is a famous football player, and I feel like that is going to make the hill she needs to climb, the dune she needs to climb to victory, much, much steeper, even if she makes it to the end. I do like the fact that she was able to build a bond with Brendan. I do like the fact that, Brendan shared the clue, but that's something that Brendan did. And no one else did anything super horribly, and at least Erin was able to switch her vote last minute.
Yeah, I agree. It's Taj for the reveal of the husband. Also, and this is something everybody in Jalapao did, but that includes Taj. They sent Brendan to exile, which I think is a very dumb move. So I'm going to knock her points for that. All right, episode 3, Mama said there'd be days like this. Erin turns out like, oh yeah, it was a last minute vote to Candace, and she tries to backpedal hard once they go back to camp. No one really buys it, but, props for trying. What can you do?
Yeah, and by what you're saying, it sounds like a lot of this is fairly true, but I mean, she's hamming it up a little bit because you need to. She's doing what she needs to do, and everyone is not believing her as they shouldn't.
Yeah, so everyone's playing correctly.
Yes, this is a bummer for Erin.
If everyone is playing correctly, the person on the bottom is the one who's getting screwed.
Yes.
That's the nature of the beast.
Go my winner pick.
Yeah, I'm not looking so great for the old Joshua right now. Jerry gets sick from the beans, can't really eat much. That sucks.
And he's trying to hide it, which again is all you can do, but like you can only
Eventually,
do so much.
You can't hide anything.
Yeah.
Blindfold reward challenge. It's one person's the caller. Joe versus Debbie. Joe destroys Debbie. This is not close. Jalapao wins. They send Brendan back to exile. At this point, it's the right move.
Yeah.
Who has been to exile? Keep that number as low as possible.
Yep.
Brendan brings Taj with.
Yep.
And this time, Taj ends up getting the correct urn. Decides to stay on Jalapao. Right move, I think.
Yes.
Shares the clue with Brendan. They form the Exiled Alliance, which is the most, I think, my favorite part of the pre-merge. This is just so exciting.
Yes, I will agree that this feels like our rising action leading into the post-merge is the Exile Alliance. So I really like it.
And this is exactly what the producers want from this. It's what makes Exile good.
Yeah.
Extra layers.
Is the best Exile Island ever is, or ever will be.
And I was going to say it's the best that I've seen because we've had it a couple times now. And this is the only time that I feel like it's truly enhanced the game for the viewer.
Yep.
I mean, I understand that there might have been some pretty significant effects on like morale and, obviously idols before this. But you have all of that, and also as the viewer, you're getting an extra layer for viewing pleasure.
Yep.
So I really like this one.
Well, it can't just be a two-person alliance. So they just said to bring in the person they trust the most. Brendan obviously brings in Sierra. Taj decides to pick Steven to bring in. So that is going to be the Exile Alliance, which is very fun. Once Timbira gets back to camp, Coach is like, hey, everyone after that challenge, let's not go out in the woods and just trash talk each other. That's not going to help anything. Coach goes out in the woods with Tyson and proceeds to trash talk everyone on the tribe.
And this is where I do have a problem with Coach if I'm trying to assess, like, because you can't help but try and figure out, like, who are these people in real life? And this is one of those things that, like, I have to try and separate, because in the game of Survivor, in a group setting, if you're going to talk about it, like, yeah, don't trash talk anyone, and then go and trash talk them behind their back. So, like, this is good gameplay if you trust Tyson, which, I think that there's a mutual level of understanding between the two.
He makes Tyson his assistant coach.
Yeah, he's assistant coach. He wants to be, and, Tyson wants to be co-coach eventually.
Yep.
So, I mean, good on him, but
it's not a bad move. It's just hypocritical.
Yeah, from an editing standpoint, it's just hard for me to be like, wow, this coach guy is a real stand-up guy.
Yeah, he's going to claim honor and integrity a lot, and which is fine if you're going to present that as a face, like, I'm all about honor and integrity, but eventually got to own up to it.
Yeah, and because that there are people out there who know that you're full of it, and so, like, eventually you got to take the mask off.
Yep.
But I respect his commitment to the bit, but does he know that it's a bit?
No.
I don't think he does.
Absolutely not.
He is dead serious.
He does not know it's a bit.
I don't know if it's like coming soon, but there's a point in this pre-merge where Jeff is like, Coach, is it about ego? And Coach is like, no, it's not about ego or self-awareness. And then I think it's Erin who's like, it's entirely about ego and self-awareness. And Coach is like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way.
I love Coach. He's a great character, but yeah, it's just funny.
He is a character.
He might be the biggest narcissist that I've seen on Survivor through 18 seasons.
He's up there. Jalapao wins immunity, mostly because Jerry can't help during this challenge, and it's a heavy lifting challenge. Jerry can't do much. So most of the tribe on Timbira wants to get rid of Jerry just because he's sick. And Erin really pushes hard for Jerry because, otherwise it's her. And this really rubs Coach the wrong way. Okay, somebody's campaigning to not go home and you're getting mad at them, Coach. Okay, calm down there, buckaroo.
And again, this isn't, I mean, I guess he kind of complains to the camera, but it's more just to other people. So he just continues to just, like, layer on this, like, Aaron is bad. Aaron is bad. Aaron is
Which,
bad.
again, is not bad gameplay.
Right. It's just like
Maybe be a little more subtle about it.
Subtlety, I don't know if Coach knows that word.
No, he doesn't. I can tell you that.
And again, not bad gameplay. It's just not a good look.
Poor execution.
Not the greatest execution. He and Tyson both want Aaron out, but they can't convince the others to do it. Brendan finds the hidden immunity idol. Awesome. Good. The Exile Alliance all come together. Tribal Council, Jerry says, I think we need a leader. And I think Brendan should be the leader. And Coach is like, oh, I should be the leader.
No, Coach, don't do this.
And Aaron's like, Brendan should be the leader. And Coach is so pissed. It's so funny. I love it. 6 votes for Jerry, 1 vote for Aaron. Again, a unanimous vote. Someone who's not doing well. And Jerry seems to be getting worse. Get rid of Jerry.
Yeah. You
sucks,
got
but-
you got to keep the tribe strong at this point.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Especially when you don't know if there's going to be a swap or anything.
Yep. So right move. For best player, I had Brendan. Forms the Exile Alliance with Taj after bringing her to exile. Found the idol. Eliminated Jerry.
Yep, I want to just give an honorable mention to Tyson just because I feel like what he's doing. And Timbura is really good. He's been made coach's assistant coach. He's kind of this lighthearted beacon of light that everyone can turn to for a cheering up, and I feel like that puts him in a good spot socially. But if you compare that against the tangible things that Brendan was able to do this episode, I think there's really no choice. It's got to be Brendan.
Worst player, I had Erin. She failed to convince anyone she wasn't with Candace, and she did get into an argument with Coach during the course of the episode. So
I'm glad you went first because I was tossing it up between Coach and Erin the whole time. Because, I mean, Erin was already in a bad spot on her tribe, and she was trying to shed the target, but everyone was playing correctly. And Coach kind of started it with her rather than her starting it with him. And when you're on the bottom, you gotta fight for yourself. So, like, I don't blame her for fighting for it. So I'm going to fall on Coach and say, like, he had more to lose, but continued to engage in this behavior anyway, and also has all the subtlety of a giant boulder rolling down a hill. So I'm going to give it to Coach, even though I don't think it's going to, like, hurt him. I just feel like it could have. He's playing with fire.
sure,
I'm going to side with Derek here. Yeah.
I'm not upset.
Coach deserves it.
So someone suggests giving Coach worst player of the episode. You're not going to get much of a fight from me, usually.
Call me biased, but I might side with you more than not if that's the case.
Episode 4, The Strongest Man Alive. Coach decides to back down and allow Brendan to be the leader. That's the right move, Coach. Good job.
I've officially decided that you can be the leader.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Put me in, Coach.
Taj successfully brings Steven into the Exile Alliance in a very great moment. Just like the way they talk about it's really fun. Like, do you want to be part of the biggest Survivor upset ever? Yes, I do.
And you could tell Steve, he's like a kid in a candy store. He's like, ooh, yay. Who was the guy who got, like, voted most team spirit? It was season 11.
Brian Corden.
Brian Corden. It reminded me of that moment where Steven was like, oh, yes.
I believe they're friends in real life.
I can believe this totally.
They're both Survivor super fans from New York.
Sure.
So, even though Steven has not seen every season of Survivor. Fun fact, he's not seen...
What?
Steven, there's a couple he hasn't seen, including Guatemala. He hasn't seen Brian's season.
What?
Yeah, there's a couple Steven has famously not seen. So
Does he just not watch him now because...
probably...
You got to keep the joke going?
Yeah, I wonder... I was going to say I wonder if he watched more of quarantine, but I think he had a baby during quarantine, so I think he's busy.
That's fair.
Brendan, on the other hand, completely fails to talk to Sierra about the Exile Alliance before going to the challenge. How do you let this happen? How is this possible? How do you not have time to just be like, hey, Sierra, real quick, 2 minutes. You just be like, hey, Sierra, you want to grab some wood? Hey, Sierra, I got to go to the bathroom. You want to come with?
Yeah,
Whatever.
I absolutely remember this too. It's ridiculous and inexcusable.
Brendan, I really like, but he has a problem, and he kind of lacks urgency. He's just really good with the flow, really cash.
Maybe he's trying to find like the perfect moment, and a lot of the times I feel like a perfect moment is not going to present itself.
What's with the urgency? Come on now.
Yeah, Brendan is too chill. Reward challenge for Jalapao wins. Taj wins it for them, and they're going to send Sierra to exile this time. And Sierra's going to bring Taj. And she's like, "What? You bitch!" Yeah, it's going to work out, but yeah, that could have been a disaster. The plan was for Brendan to tell Sierra. Sierra gets sent to exile. Sierra brings Steven so they can bond about the Exile Alliance. But no, Brendan's dumb. Taj rolls with the punches very well, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's going to work out. Because, Steven could have easily been like, oh, well, obviously this isn't nearly as good as Taj thought it was, I'm going to back out and let her be on the outs.
Yeah, good point.
So, like, there were ways for this to go wrong. Like, Brendan might have accidentally torpedoed this whole thing. I don't think that it's going to cause that big of a rift because, like, Sierra, again, she's looking for something. Like, she's got Brendan, but she doesn't really even know that yet because he didn't talk to her.
Yeah, they get to exile, and Taj is like, so did Brendan talk to you at all? No? What? No? But Taj does the dirty for him, and Sierra's like, oh, yeah, I'm totally in. Sounds good. Great. Good job, Taj. But part of the reward win is Jalapao gets to raid Timbira, so JT and Joe go on the raid. Don't go on the raid. I don't think we get another raid in Survivor, but don't go on the raid. Don't be the person to go on the raid.
And I like the raid. I like that it's not the, like, 2 minutes to raid the camp thing anymore. I think that's too extreme. But, like, you know, a certain number of items, obviously, I say take the tarp, but they already had the tarp. So take a bag of beans. And I think the water canister is fine.
Yep.
I like what they talked about with hedging their bet, by the way, which was interesting because they're like, if there's a tribe swap, does anyone really want to end up on the team with no beans? And the only person who has a problem with this is Sandy, but she's kind of a lunatic.
Yeah, it's almost like Sandy's never good at Survivor.
The whole thinking ahead thing.
Not really her thing.
Not great.
Yeah, so they only take half of the rice. So they definitely, you know, it helps.
Half the beans.
Yeah, half the beans. It definitely helps. But, yeah, they definitely, like, save some just in case of a swap, which is absolutely the right move.
Mm-hmm. And I think everyone would understand that.
I think JT and Joe played the raid as best they could. So props to them. Don't go on it, but if you're going to go on it, this is, like, the textbook way to do it.
Yeah, and one nice thing is that they get to interact with the other tribe here and at least try and, you know, we know how Coach feels about just exchanging glances and eye contact with people. So, like,
Use this opportunity to just
Coach probably
crazy-eye him.
Coach went up to Tyson as soon as, like, I'm making this up. This is headcanon, but Coach went up to Tyson after they left and was like, I got an alliance with those two. I could see it in their eyes.
We got them, boys.
Cindy is flirting with the guys a lot. Surprise, Cindy.
Sydney, not Cindy.
Shut up, Josh. If you want to understand that reference, go ahead and listen to our How to Survive a Horror Movie podcast. Josh and I recently covered the scary movies, literally scary movies, the Wayans Brothers and beyond. And the character in that movie is named Cindy, and I kept calling her Sydney. And it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess, and I cannot pronounce this to save my life. Anyway, How to Survive a Horror Movie, great podcast. I would recommend.
There's a word from our sponsor. Ourselves?
Yeah, I'm sponsoring both podcasts.
They pay us well.
But Sydney's flirting with the guys a lot, especially Joe.
Sydney.
I definitely said Sydney.
I'm telling you, man, I had to correct him so many times, but I think it's more just that it's so close to the same thing.
Sandy wants to take her out for being a flirt. Fair. It's a dangerous game to play.
You know, Ryan, you talk about this all the time. Like, if you got it, use it, right? So it's perfectly rational for Sandy to be scared of something that she can't do.
Yep.
She can. I mean, she can.
She can try.
She can flirt with Joe if she wants. If they're Pokemon, I doubt that that's very super effective. You know, get her out. That's
You
a
know
big
what
threat
Joe's
to your
into.
game. Yeah, I'm
He
not.
could be really
I am
into Sandy.
I'm not claiming to know.
Next, this doesn't really matter, but it is one of the funniest moments of any season of Survivor, and it's something that is ingrained in my head. And it might be, in my opinion, the most memorable moment of the pre-merge. This might be my nomination. I'd have to think about it a little bit more, but possible nomination. Tyson decides to go around in just a loincloth and starts dancing around like a caveman going, "Unga bunga bunga."
I was going to say, is this the Oonga Boonga? Yeah.
Unga bunga. And it is just so funny and so absurd. It's like, I'm going to bring back the loincloth, guys.
I'm going to single-handedly bring back the loincloth. What if I did that?
Oh, I love Tyson so much. He's the best.
I will accept that as a nomination.
Timbira wins immunity, bounce back. We're going to Tribal Council. It's really between Sydney and Sandy. And while Sydney does get a lot of heat at Tribal Council, it's going to be 5 votes for Sandy, 1 for Sydney, 1 for Joe, because Taj didn't want to vote for Sandy, so she just threw a vote on Joe. Not good. Don't do that. Sandy's not going to be on the jury. Just vote her out. It's fine.
Yes.
But ultimately, this is the right move.
I'm good with this move.
She was driving some people nuts at camp, so.
Yeah, like the honeymoon period had worn off.
Yeah, it seemed like the other 6 all got along really well, and then there's Sandy. Yeah, apparently she repeats herself a lot. And
Repeats herself.
Yeah, she repeats herself a lot.
Stuff.
Great.
Repeat stuff.
So, bye-bye, Sandy. It's too bad. She's great.
She's great in small... I think she had the perfect amount of screen time.
She's another one of those, like, your Reem, your Debbie types, the kind of nutcases that I love. I wish she'd gone further. I love Sandy.
And in fairness, of the people you just mentioned, Sandy is the one that I would most like to see back.
Sure.
But I also don't, I don't know what goes on in her personal life. So,
And you know what? I'm probably happier for it.
some things are better left a mystery.
So for best player, even though she voted for Joe, which I don't really like, I'm going to give it to Taj. She single-handedly won the reward challenge. She brought in Steven and Sierra to the Exile Alliance, really rolled with the punches after Brendan's screw-up. So I'm going to give it to Taj.
I'm going to agree with Taj, but I did not like how she voted for Joe for no reason.
Yep.
This is pre-merge. All it can do is sever those ties, but ultimately there wasn't a lot of great gameplay this episode, so to speak. There's a lot of neutral and a couple negatives, so I think Taj is the best.
I wonder if this is the first time that you gave a best player of the episode to someone who voted incorrectly.
Possibly.
It's rare.
It's rare.
Was there no one even close?
There wasn't much going on in this episode. The rest of the episode was pretty much just Tyson and Sandy's wacky antics.
I guess you could give it to Tyson, but just for a comical moment, I guess that's not enough.
And I mean, and you can look at JT and was it Joe who did well with the raid? But I mean, again, don't be the ones to go do that.
True.
But good for Jalapao in general for winning some stuff. But it's hard.
Yeah, and Taj did so great up until that vote that it was just like, yeah, that wasn't great, but the rest of the episode was so good for Taj.
Okay.
A little bit of an asterisk next to it. Worst player, I had Brendan. He takes the leadership position that Coach so generously granted him. But worst of all, he failed to tell Sierra about the Exile Alliance, which could have destroyed everything. Abysmal gameplay from Brendan.
So I actually had Aaron because several times throughout this episode, everyone was talking about how she is self-secluding. I think Tyson has a whole confessional dedicated to the fact that now when the tribe is off doing stuff together, Aaron is self-secluding, back at camp or off somewhere doing something else. We understand that Aaron is on the outs, but that doesn't mean that you just give up and then go be a hobbit and live in your hole. You have to try and make inroads. You have to try and make connections. And so for that reason, if she's not going to help herself, even though Brendan didn't say anything to Sierra, I don't think that's enough to knock him for worst of the episode when he's still in a good spot on his tribe. I have Aaron.
That's tough because Brendan now officially has formed a new alliance. Even though he didn't do anything to make it happen, he is now a part of a new alliance. Ultimately, I'm going to side with Ryan here and Brendan just because it's inexcusable not to be able to find time to talk to someone for a hot minute.
A game-changing moment.
This could change the entire game, and you almost screwed it. You were lucky that you didn't screw it up. So even though Aaron wasn't good, I still have to side with Ryan and give it to Brendan here.
I do have a dishonorable mention in my notes for Sydney, though, because what's your favorite part about Survivor? Being sneaky. I never get to be sneaky.
Whoops.
Don't be talking about that. And then, her flirting strategy kind of got outed at Tribal Council, and she fed into it a little bit.
Yep.
It's not so much about her as getting torpedoed by, a Sandy who's a little bit of a fish out of water, knowing that she was in big trouble. But it's never good when you get outed at Tribal, and then you don't do anything to help yourself.
Yeah. I think that was a thing where it wasn't as bad as we saw. I think the edit played it up.
I'm
for
sure it did.
But yeah, it wasn't great. Episode 5, you're going to want that tooth. Taj finds the hidden immunity idol with Steven. Immediately gives it to Steven because she doesn't have pockets. And because no one will suspect him. Okay, there's some logic there. People are going to suspect you have the idol because you've been to exile, right? So, you don't keep it in your bags and whatnot. So that means you go hide it. You bury it somewhere.
Yeah,
you don't mean you give it away.
Terrible logic.
This is a really bad move, especially for someone who's an intellectual like Stephen Fishback, because he's going to be the guy who's well, technically, you gave up possession.
It's my
The dark saber is mine now. I have defeated you in combat.
The idol belongs to Steven now. It's not Taj's idol anymore. It's Steven's idol.
And the edit keeps hamming this up, so I am eagerly awaiting the payoff. Maybe there is one, maybe there's not one. I haven't seen it yet.
Brendan and Sierra finally get on the same page about the Exile Alliance. And Brendan tells Sierra he's got the idol, which I think is a fair move in this case. Very rarely is a fair move, but Sierra has all the clues, and it's obviously hidden in tree mail. Any idiot who reads that is going to know it's in tree mail. If he doesn't tell her, Sierra's going to go there, see it's gone. Oh, Brendan's lying to me. You got to tell her.
Plus it can shore up anything just in case, there's now hesitation from Sierra about, hey, why didn't you talk to me before?
Yep.
So that can at least just bring them right back together.
Shouldn't be there in the first place, but,
No. No,
he's digging himself out of a hole.
Oh, and now all they have to do is just get to the merge, and they have 2 idols in this Exile Alliance.
He's digging himself out of this bonfire hole he dug.
Yes. This very deep bonfire hole.
Jalapao wins reward. They send Brendan back to exile. Brendan brings Steven with this time, really solidify this bond. I like this. But this does make Tyson suspicious. So he, Coach, and Debbie all talk, and they're like, okay, we'll take Brendan out next. And Coach has no problem with this because, curse you, Brendan, you're the leader, and I want to be the leader.
I do like how observant Tyson is because, he goes over and he's like, listen, we got to be really careful. Brendan is building these bonds with the other tribe, and he's doing it on purpose. We need to be scared. This is very intelligent gameplay and a very good observation.
Which is absolutely true. And Brendan is in a bad spot because he gets set into exile, but it was the hand he was dealt. He's got to play it the best he can.
Oh, absolutely. Brendan is not at fault for... he's at fault for not talking to Sierra, but if you're going to be the one who keeps getting sent to exile, the big problem with exile up until this season is that it leaves you secluded, so you're not building bonds with the tribe you're not on, and you're not building tribes with the bond you're on. This kind of fixes that. It's this beautiful mutation in Survivor, and that's why it's working so well. So he's like, well, this isn't the strategy I would have wanted to play, but
here we are.
Sometimes you got to play a 10 and a 2. You
play the hand you're dealt.
Play the hand you're dealt.
Brendan and Steven, they get to know each other. Steven wants to use the Exile Alliance as a backup plan, not necessarily put all of his eggs in that basket. Yeah, totally fair. You can't really fully trust the Timbira people. They could be stringing you along. Have it in your back pocket for sure. But I think you generally want to stick with your original tribe.
Let's alternate universe this. You could be using this as a complete misdirection to, once you get to the merge, just take out the other tribe because they think that you're on their side in this sub-alliance. It could be a perfect way to just dismantle them, and you don't really know.
I think it's a glorified flipping mechanism. It's like you're priming the pump, so to speak. So for example, you've got Timbira. They're kind of a fractured tribe. And it's mostly because you've got Coach, who's just this alpha bro. Not even alpha bro. He's just this alpha personality.
Yep.
And he's kind of a beta player. And is really off-putting to people like Sierra, who are on the outs. And then Brendan, who's on the outs because of Exile Island. They have no reason to stay with their original Timbira alliance because they know that they are on the bottom of that Timbira. So for Steven to be like, yeah, this is my backup plan, I think it's more of a flipping mechanism. They've got every reason to come over to Jalapao if a merge happens. Mm-hmm. And that's great.
Spencer has not told anyone on his tribe that he is gay. And for the context, Spencer's 18. At this point, he's the youngest Survivor contestant of all time. He hasn't told anybody because he's gay because he doesn't think it'll help him and could hurt him. To be stereotypical here for a second, you have someone like JT, a cattle rancher from Alabama. Maybe, yeah, there's there's definitely some fear. You don't necessarily want to tell someone just in case. And I've never heard anything about JT being homophobic, but, there's definitely a fear there. I can speak to that a little bit.
Sure.
We live in North Dakota. I don't, I'm queer. I'm out and mostly open about it. I don't really hide it, but I don't tell every single person I meet. Because we live in North Dakota, you don't want to tell everybody. But no, I definitely understand Spencer's fear there, and especially because this is 2008 or 9 at this point, very different from 2021, very different era. So yeah, no, I totally understand Spencer's fear about or just wanting to be careful because it can't necessarily help him, but it could hurt him. I think nowadays, you look at the Zeke and Brett thing, the relationship they formed over Millennials versus Gen X. I think now it could definitely help you if you find another LGBT person on the season. You can definitely form a bond and an alliance that way. 18-year-old Spencer, I hold nothing against him for not telling anybody. But, here's the big but. Part of the problem here is, and I've heard this in interviews, is Spencer didn't really open up a lot to people. And that's tough to do. You're 18, you don't have as much world experience. So it's harder to build the social bonds. And if you're hiding a big part of yourself, it makes it even more difficult. Not only are you 18, you're hiding a huge part of who you are. He can't really talk about any romantic relationship he has because he's just like, oh yeah, no girlfriends right now. It just makes it tougher to connect. And Spencer's in a bad spot because he's 18. If Spencer were to come back and play again, because he's going to go home in this episode, 10 years later, I think he'd be a great Survivor player. I just think he was too young.
I think that it is a bit of a combination of the times and the situation because, like you said, when you're 18, you're so busy trying to find out who you are. I'll speak for me. I was so busy trying to find out who I am, and I don't want to say so fortunate, but sometimes this world is very, very mean to people who aren't a part of the status quo. I wasn't grappling with any of that, so I can't speak to it, and I'm glad that you have some of that credibility for our podcast, But as with anything on Survivor, it can be used to help and it can be used to hurt. that's why when it comes to, especially when you don't know people on the island or, on your tribe, stereotyping on first impressions is not inherently a bad thing. Now, you need to be able to cater to the individual very quickly, and you need to be able to use that to solidify social bonds. But I think that you would be really silly to go in and just try and I don't think anything about you. It's like, no, you have to try and approach each person in a custom manner to make them want to build a bond with you. And if he was spending so much of his energy on hiding a part of himself, that means that he doesn't have anything left to go and build bonds with other people. And that's a very unfortunate mechanic for him, given the time, given his age, given the situation. So it is a bummer, and I agree that he would be a better, more complete player in 2021, not just because, let's say that he aged up. He would be great. He's in his 30s now, I would imagine. Or if you even just take 18-year-old Spencer and drop him into 2021, I think he would have had an opportunity to do a lot better.
Because he has a lot of the pieces. He's got the strategic game pretty good.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of the pieces there for someone who's 18.
Yeah. I guess all I can really say in summary to this whole situation is I'm glad in 2021, any sort of queer player, anyone who is part of that community, they don't have to go through the same level of obstacles that someone like Spencer did at the time.
Yeah.
So that's all I can say, that I'm happy that we made progress.
Yeah.
Great progress in that area.
And even go back to season 1 with Dr. Sean's comments and stuff like that. And
Right.
Dirk.
And not everyone can be Richard Hatch.
Yeah, not everyone can be Richard Hatch. Probably a good thing.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
We made progress in 20 plus years. That's yay. That's good. Fun fact about Spencer: he dated Todd Herzog for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Cool.
Immunity challenge. This is another really. Actually, this might be the most iconic moment of the pre-match for me. It's you catching balls with a net. JT's an absolute tank and scores 4 out of the 5 points. I think the only 4 points his tribe gets were all JT.
Yep.
They aren't going to end up losing, but while making a spectacular dive and a catch, JP knocks part of his tooth out. He loses the back half of a front tooth. Just, there goes the tooth. And JT's like, yeah, whatever, and just toss it in the river. And Jeff's like, no, we got to keep that. You need that. And JT's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll keep it.
Okay.
I don't know why, but sure.
Yeah, this is definitely something that I remember. Definitely didn't remember it until you just mentioned it now, though. Yeah, that was a pretty big moment.
Yep. Jalapao loses mostly because of Spencer. He's playing defense pretty badly, not really getting into it.
Because his job was guarding Tyson.
Yep.
Now, from a physical standpoint,
A little bit of a height difference.
Tyson is taller. He's got longer arms, and this is a game that's kind of about reach. It's kind of about range. That being said, Jeff didn't say that you can't tackle them, and that's maybe something that he should have realized a little sooner.
And we saw Taj was tackling people, for example.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Spencer just wasn't fully into the game, and JT's pissed. We don't see pissed JT very often, but yikes. They get back to camp. Taj is pissed about the loss, and she just lashes out at Joe for no reason. You never talked to me about strategy before, and stuff like that. And it's whoa, okay, Taj, calm down.
This is one of those times, because she's very self-aware after the fact. She's like, I shouldn't have done that. It was whoever was in my immediate vicinity was going to catch the hands, and that's just how it was going to happen. Yeah, but, having a little bit of forethought, it's good that you can reflect on this and grow, but it'd be better if you didn't blow up at your tribe mate with whom you don't have a great relationship.
So Joe wants to take Taj out. JT wants Spencer out and tells him, yeah, I might vote for you. Good chance I'm going to vote for you. Dude, what if he has the idol?
Yeah, not the right move there.
It's fine to want him out, but you don't tell him.
It's a hole, I think, in JT's game. I think he's one of these people that are too good for Survivor, I think. But that's coming from me. I know that I am not built like a JT. I'm not built like a Tom Westman or an Andrew Savage or an Ozzy. There's no way I could honor and integrity my way to the end of this game. JT can do that. Jay can, not just in Survivor, I'm sure JT can do that in life. He can just honor and integrity his way basically anywhere he needs to go. And so that's all he really knows how to do. Awesome. If it works, great. But I would not recommend this.
Tribal Council, it's going to be 5 votes for Spencer, 1 vote for Taj. Again, if you can get a unanimous vote going on, go for it. It's fine.
It's crazy how many unanimous ones there were.
It's been really nuts.
Yeah, the votes have not been all too much of mysteries in this pre-merge, and that's one of the reasons I say that the cast of characters carries the pre-merge, because there's not a lot of craziness that happens otherwise. I don't think we've had a blindside. Tyson has teased a couple of them. I guess the Candace one kind of was, but I think she knew.
Candace is probably the closest thing we got to a blindside so far. Carolina maybe too.
I guess.
But still, they were unanimous votes.
If we're talking about self-awareness, like, with Taj and JT just now, Candace and Carolina had the least self-awareness, maybe other than Coach.
Yeah. Derek, who you got for best player of the episode?
I had Fishback. Taj gave him the idol for no reason, and then he's solidified his alliance with JT now, and there was one other thing that I can't remember.
He built up an alliance with Brendan.
That's right. He powwowed with Brendan on immunity on Exile Island.
Saved Taj by voting out Spencer, and he is aware and has some plans with the Exile Alliance to keep that in his back pocket.
Yes. That was the other one I was
spoilers,
trying to think of.
Steven's also my best player.
Cool.
I agree.
Thanks, Josh. Derek, worst player?
It's Taj. She gave up the idol that she found. So it's like, hooray, you found the idol, and you gave it away, and now it's not in your possession. And then you get frustrated after the challenge, and you blow up at the person on your tribe who you don't have a good relationship with. Like, if Steven has to come in and try and play peacemaker for you, like, oh, that's just her. She's just angry right now. She's not actually mad at you, Joe. Like, that's another thing that Steven did that was so great. He's like trying to placate, like, don't blow up my backup plan, please. Not great. So I feel like it's not close, and it was Taj. So
yeah, it's easy, Taj. Easy.
Yeah.
Bit of a dishonorable mention for JT, it sounded like, though.
Sure, yeah, dishonorable mention to JT, but yeah, it's Taj.
Yeah, if anything, just giving up the idols would put that over the top, because both of them kind of blew up at camp. So
episode 6 is a recap episode, which is really early for a recap episode.
Yeah, usually it's around the merge.
Yeah, middle of the merge maybe. So moving on, episode 7, one of those Coach moments is last episode of the pre-merge. Coach annoys everyone, and yep, that's about right. But basically this time on Coach annoys everyone, he burns the beans, and Sierra ends up calling him out for it, and he gives like this sarcastic apology. It is so dismissive of Sierra, and she has some good points. It's not something like you should say, you don't want to start a fight with anybody, but Sierra is 100% right, and Coach is so dismissive of her. He is such a jackass.
Yeah.
Just let him go. Let him keep doing this. Dig his hole.
And for Sierra, like, I understand that you've been frustrated with your social standing on the tribe, but, like, this is a great moment where you can let Coach, who's clearly in the wrong, dig his own hole, and then pull a Coach and talk trash about him behind his back to basically whomever, because he's targeting you anyway.
Give out some alpha eyes and just like look at everybody and be like,
yeah, go up to Tyson and be like, hey, did you heard what Coach was doing earlier? That was really weird.
No, you don't even have to do it verbally. While he's doing this, and everybody's like at the campfire all pissed off, you just make eye contact, be like,
yeah, just look around and be like, huh.
Give him that look, like Coach was doing apparently earlier.
And the reason that we know that this was so egregious is it wasn't just Sierra. It was just Sierra in the moment. But then we had like 3 confessionals from other Team Bureau members, including Tyson, who are like, yeah, Coach was kind of a doof. Just another one of those Coach moments.
Yep.
The titular.
Taj wants to tell JT about the idol. Effing why? Explain yourself. And Steven talks her out of it. Thank you, Steven.
Good job.
Why would you tell JT about the idol?
Okay, I want to talk about this a little bit, because you need a way to solidify the Exile Alliance, and also Taj knows that with Spencer gone, she doesn't necessarily have a leg up with Joe. Certainly not, because Joe and Sydney have been openly flirting, and she's just kind of neutral with JT, and then JT might be like, okay, well, who do I feel like I can trust more? And Taj just blew up. So maybe, like, for Taj, this is like, listen, I'm going to use this as a tool to solidify my alliance. I don't actually hate the move for Taj. I think it's better that Steven was able to, and he says it better than I do, remain the liaison between JT and Taj. It makes him more important, more cardinal, and
valuable,
more instrumental in this alliance. So great on Steven. If Taj would have been able to do this, I genuinely think that JT would have been the kind of guy, because we're gonna see this play out. that he's like, you know what, thank you for telling me about the idol. I really do trust you more, and I really do think that this helps us going forward.
Yeah, but this is the exception, not the rule.
I understand, but like we need to be able to read who these people are and make a judgment call based on that. Now, I do think...
I do understand the reasoning, just because it's... I would have waited until after the immunity challenge to do something like this.
That was exactly the caveat I was about to say. Wait till you know you have to go to tribal.
Because I would rather not risk going home right now.
Right.
I would rather give someone a little bit more. I mean, it's a lot of information, but I'd rather give someone information and have a solid 3 out of 5 rather than, oh, whoops, I'm now out in the pre-merge.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yep.
It really does.
So I'm gonna be careful.
Yeah, tread lightly here. I'm gonna give a ton more credit to Steven for being able to like remain the liaison than I am like giving shade to Taj for thinking of this idea.
And maybe it's more Steven should trust his relationship with JT since he's the one that's closer with him versus Taj, and he should do a lot better job of reaffirming that over and over again. Just like, no, we're good. Like, don't need to give up that extra information. Like, we're already this solid 3.
Timbira wins the bag tossing reward through a barricade. Or no, not bag tossing, pig tossing.
Yeah, ceramic pigs.
Ceramic pig tossing. I think I wrote down pig, and it autocorrected to big, and I saw bag. So it was a pig tossing reward challenge, but not real pigs, ceramic pigs through a barricade, which is a pretty fun challenge. I like this challenge a lot.
Yeah, unique.
Very unique. They send Joe to Exile Island, which is a bad move.
I agree.
Why?
Taj kind of explains it in confessional, like, well, you know, we already got our alliance. We can do what we want now. No, you cannot.
Okay, you don't want to send Taj back. Okay, send Steven. He's been there. You can pick between either one. It's fine.
The only argument for it that I could see is if you think that anyone's starting to catch on to this, like, sub-alliance, which we already saw Tyson is, but that's where you just have to weigh it yourself on what it's worth.
Joe brings Aaron with, because his plan is they're going to be down in the numbers now. Or if they lose. They haven't lost the immunity challenge yet, but they could be down in the numbers. He thinks Aaron is the most likely to flip, which is exactly right. Like, she's clearly the most on the outs.
Good job, Joe.
Good read. So he wants to build this relationship with her to bring her over.
Is she, though? Like, even if you look at, like, Sierra...
She has the least connections.
She has the fewest connections, but I mean, like, Sierra only has one, and it's Brendan, and Brendan's biggest connection is on... But Joe does not know this.
1 is better than 0.
Yeah. Joe's got a good read for his own personal game.
I have no idea how Joe would know this. Like, if I was in Joe's position, I would probably have picked Sierra, just given the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I don't know. But good job, Joe. And he gets Aaron to share the idol clue with him. They agree to work together. We got Exile Alliance 2 happening.
We're so original. We've got such a great idea.
Yeah, like, I got this great idea. You know, what if we work together, cross-tribal alliance? Like, oh, thanks, Joe.
Game changers.
Survivor game changer. Yeah.
Joe, the engineer of the Exile Alliance.
So back at camp, Taj makes a fake idol because the clues are so obvious for Joe to find, which he's going to find the fake idol. I don't think he's got the real one. But she used the real idol as like a model to like design a fake idol after. And while she goes off to like hide the fake idol, she leaves the real idol in her bag, which JT sees and finds it. And he goes to Steven. He's like, hey, Taj has the idol. And Steven plays it really cool. He's like, oh, yeah, she just told me just now, like a couple minutes ago. Yeah, crazy, huh? And then Taj and Steven bring JT into the alliance. Because at that point, it's like, you got to.
Yeah.
And JT's like, yeah, thanks for telling me.
Good job thinking on your feet, Steven.
Well done.
Great job on Steven. I want to say, like, good job, JT, for not, like, reading too much into this. But at the same time, I would have liked to see a confessional at this point where it's like, why did nobody, like, tell me about this? Like, why would she tell Steven and not me? We're kind of a package order. And why didn't Steven immediately come to me? Granted, that's like reading into things too much, and maybe you're overthinking it. But like, I would have liked to see some sort of awareness.
He underthinks this one.
Yes. You could say it's fishy. Fishbacky.
There's something fishbacky about this.
So JT blows the immunity challenge, the slingshot one. JT's fault.
The old switcheroo from last episode.
Timbira wins immunity. Jalapal's going to Tribal Council.
And we just kind of yachted through the immunity challenge, but I want to present something to you specifically, Ryan, because you watched the season with me. Why, at this point, does Jalapal not throw the challenge?
Why would Jalapal throw the challenge?
Because if the Exile Alliance is now 3 of 5 on their remaining tribe of 5, let's say that they win and they send Timbura to Tribal. That's just giving them another chance to send home a member of the Exile Alliance, your Sierra or your Brendan, who are both kind of on the chopping block along with Aaron. They are very liable to go home if Timbura were to lose. I think that if you are like Taj and Steven, you're thinking, okay, why don't we just do this and then bring people over and then we can guarantee that Sydney goes home?
A, that's putting a ton of trust in Brendan and Sierra. B, they get along with Sydney and Joe fine. The only person that has any trouble with them is Taj. For Steven and JT, I think they'd like to work with Joe and Sydney, but can't because they got to vote somebody out. And that's putting so much trust in Brendan and Sierra. Not worth it.
In theory, if this is like a tribe swamp situation where you have other people who you already know, like for sure that they're in your future alliance once you come back together, sure, completely agree. But like Ryan said, I think there's way too much chance here to risk your game on something like that.
Joe wants Taj to go because of the fight they had. Steven and JT are like, hey, we should vote out Sydney instead. And Joe doesn't want to do it.
Because he promised her merge.
Yeah. But, I like that they tried to talk him into it so we wouldn't feel as blindsided.
Yeah, they did not blindside Joe. Yeah. This is a good move because you might be going into a merge and you don't want someone who's going to be like, yeah, let me just go ahead and pile on.
3 votes for Sydney, 2 votes for Taj. This is the right move.
It's the right move. Joe, you should have just voted for Sydney.
Should have just voted for Sydney.
Because she's not on the jury.
Yeah. And she's got a boyfriend. You got no chance. Best player, I had Steven Fishback. He stopped Tosh from telling JT about the idol, but played it cool when JT did actually find the idol. It brought JT into the alliance, got rid of Sydney. Great episode for Steven.
Yeah, he wins the Fishy Award.
Yes, he does. For those of you who don't know, Steven Fishback, he famously gives out the Fishy Award when he used to blog about Survivor, and he does a podcast with Rob Sestrino about Survivor, and he always gives the Fishy Award to the best strategic player of the episode, which I think he would win for this episode.
Oh, absolutely. It's not even close.
Worst player, Coach. He burned the beans. He was dismissive of Sierra. He sent Joe to X Island for some reason. I had Coach.
I said Joe just because he put himself on the wrong side of the vote, but I didn't think that there was a lot here, and I don't feel like Coach's position in his tribe has been hurt by almost anything that he does. Everyone is just kind of waiting for like the moment, and he is just a tool dressed in black right now.
A tool dressed in black. I want to say, in Joe's defense, he did build that bond with Aaron.
Yes, so. and that's like he made the best of a bad situation, but I think ultimately if you're willing to die on a pre-merge vote out hill when you were brought into the fold, like I guess maybe he could have gone to JT and been like, listen, I made a promise to her. This is all off camera. Like we didn't see this, but he could have been like, you're a man of your word. I'm a man of my word. I am not going to be a part of this, but just so you know, I understand and I'm still with you. Because he does talk about wanting to go into the, like if there is a merge, to go in 4 strong.
Yep.
With whoever it is, and that was his reasoning for wanting to vote out Taj, is because he didn't realize that like Taj is very much in with Steven and JT.
And I think that's likely considering JT and Joe, they're both kind of Southern gentlemen.
Yeah.
So I think that could have definitely happened. Certainly possible, but we didn't see it.
Yep, off camera.
Josh, tie break us.
Man, it pains me. It really pains me not to vote for Coach, but I think I'm going to side with Derek on this one. Just because this is probably the worst time just to die on that kind of hill of being allegiant to someone who's not going to be in the on the jury. Sure. So that is really the worst thing that Joe could do right now.
Sure.
So I think you have to give it to him. As much as I'd love to keep giving it to Coach. I'll still give him a dishonorable mention, though.
Oh, he deserves it.
Oh, that's fine.
Can we just go up through, even for the flashback episode, I'm sure that Coach deserves a dishonorable mention.
There's probably an extra moment in there. Behind the scenes footage of Coach being an idiot.
There's one of the most famous recap episode moments is with Coach. Shocker. So not only is he's a soccer coach at a college, but he's also a conductor in a symphony. And so he gives a symphonic performance where it's just him doing his conductor stuff and making mouth noises, and it's just bizarre. And that's in the recap episode. And he's going, whatever he's doing, and it's just what is happening? And somebody, I think it's Aaron, has this famous confessional. Who is this jackass? The question we're all asking, Aaron.
That's my pick.
Where did they find him?
Yeah, Missouri.
What rock did they turn under?
Somewhere in Missouri. What's the town he's from? Because it's not even a major town. It's Bolivar, Missouri. Guys, all of our winner picks made it to the merge.
Go us!
Go us. We're doing great. Brendan, Aaron, and
Tyson.
Yes, that's right.
All equally as strong.
So the question now is, we're stuck with these winner picks. You can't change them. But if you could change them, who would you switch them to, if anybody?
I think I would change, because what we're seeing in the edit is a very fractured Timbira tribe. Like, yes, they're going in with 6, but I actually see them going in like a group of 2, a group of 3, and a group of 1. I see a ton of fractures there, whereas I see a Jalapao tribe that's like, yeah, we need all hands on deck going forward. And not only do they have all hands on deck, but they do have strong connections, tied and bound by idols on the Timbira tribe, just ready. Pump has been primed to flip. If I had to pick, I think I would go with switch to Steven at this point. And he's had a mostly positive edit. He really understands the game strategically. He has the most self-awareness. He's been proven to be able to think on his feet. And I like almost everything that he's done.
I would agree. Just given the realization of the Exile Alliance here, Steven is the guy who, his own words, liaison between JT and Taj. You can kind of then overpower potentially Brendan and Sierra if you're worried about looking at someone on the Timbira side. So if there was one to emerge from that group, I'd pick it to be Steven. So he'd be my guy.
Yeah, lest we forget that Steven also technically has an idol.
Yep, Steven's got the idol, not Taj.
Technically.
So for me, I always like to pick the person who's got the most connections going into the merge. So that would be the Exile Alliance by default. Of the Exile Alliance people, Steven's clearly the best player. Easy. Hands down, best player of those 4. So Steven's my pick too. I'd switch to Steven as well.
And the ironic part of it is he just fell backwards into this alliance. Like, it isn't something that, like, he orchestrated.
Nope.
It's just like, oh, hey, look what we're doing now. Okay, cool.
But Taj liked him enough to bring him in. And sometimes all you got to do is be likable and not insane.
And that's the beauty of the social game.
It was very reminiscent, and I'm jumping way forward, but to Tommy in season 39, where like people are coming to him with options rather than him like having to like manifest these things. A good Survivor player can be opportunistic by having that charisma and those connections. So Steven is doing that.
Yeah. I think one of the most effective ways to play Survivor, if you have the skill level for it, is to have multiple people coming to you with options and you choose the best option for yourself. It's like you're the king and you have all your like advisors coming to you with multiple plans. And you get to pick the best one.
Absolutely.
If you can pull that off, that's like a surefire way to win.
Yes.
Worst player of the pre-merge. And just a reminder for both of these awards, we can only pick a person who made the merge. We have 10 people to choose from. Who's the worst player of those 10?
I'm going to go with Coach. I don't think that he's someone who would very often get booted in a pre-merge situation, because like you want to keep him around for a little while just as someone to deflect the target from you. But basically everything he did was bad. And frankly, to get into this discussion, I think that if he had been a woman, he actually would have been voted out a while ago, because he would have been super annoying, super off-putting, honestly kind of like a Candace. I don't want to say there's no chance he wins the game, but like nobody likes him, and even
2 people like him.
They're okay with him. They can tolerate him.
Debbie seems to actually really like him. I think Tyson tolerates him.
Sure. So I'm going to go with Coach, though. I think that his lack of self-awareness alone is enough to kick him to the bottom, and that's on a season with JT, who also doesn't have a ton of self-awareness, and Taj, who had retrospective self-awareness, but not a ton of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Coach here too, and I feel great about it. There might be like some sort of argument for like even my winner pick, like Erin, but she's just kind of been at the bottom the entire time, not really doing a whole lot. I'd much rather choose someone here who is actively doing things that just don't make sense, or not even that don't make sense, but like just acts against what you should do socially. That's really the big thing here is the social side of it. So I'm very satisfied to pick Coach.
Again, who is this jackass that is the worst player of the pre-merge? It's Coach Wade. Easy choice as far as I'm concerned. Probably, I don't even know who else you would give it to. Erin and Taj both have some rough moments, but some decent moments, especially on Taj's end. So it's an easy pick for Coach for me. I don't think it's close.
Yeah.
I would think Taj is even like more on the positive side than the negative side.
Any other thoughts you guys want to talk about so far going into the merge? Anything else you want to say? Who is the best player of the pre-merge?
I'm just going to go ahead and say that the person that I would switch to is also the best. I'm going to go with Steven. And honestly, my criteria is typically the person who comes out fairly chameleoned and played a strong strategic pre-merge and sets them up for a good run in the post-merge. just because we saw a lot of Steven and he had a lot of confessionals, he was mostly camouflaged. He's got JT in front of him. He's got Taj behind him. He's got these people on the other tribe who are going to go to bat for him. He's not a huge physical threat. He's not the leader of his tribe. Steven has, I think, played darn near a perfect pre-merge. If I were to give him a rubric, I would say he understood the assignment. He got 100%. It's Steven.
Yeah, I would agree. What Derek said, along with everything that I had previously said about like who I would have switched to, I would also like to give a honorable mention here to Tyson. He would definitely be my number 2 guy. It's just he hasn't gotten the chance to do a whole lot strategically, but we've gotten most of his stuff through his personality, his antics, along with confessionals when he talks about like things that he's recognizing, like we mentioned with the sub-alliance going on.
Yeah. By the way, we did not mention 2 legendary confessionals by Tyson where he's like, I just want to see the look on somebody's face when we crush their dreams. That'd be fun.
Yeah, best player Steven. There's nothing else to say. Near perfect pre-merge for Steven. High praise. So, guys, anything else you want to say before going into the merge here?
All I can say is that I'm excited. Even though I don't necessarily dub this as must-watch, I'm finding that this is sort of a Survivor like Renaissance era where it's been a lot of good. Like, I mean, yeah, 17 was a little bit of blah, but I mean, it was still good overall. I really have liked this stretch of Survivor, and I'm excited to see what this cast of characters can do in a post-merge. I mean, love or hate Coach, I'm glad to have him in a post-merge just to see what happens. Don't know if he's long for this world, but we'll find out.
Derek, weather report.
There was quite a bit of rain. I don't exactly know how much or how often, but it didn't seem to play as much of a factor. I don't know if it's just the edit's focus on the characters or trying to focus on the strategy side because you have this added layer of Exile Island, but we didn't get a lot of complaining from the players about how bad the weather is. So all I've noticed, there's of course Coach trying to play weatherman where he's like, look at the clouds, like the way they're blowing in, and then the wind changes directions when a storm is coming. That's gonna miss us just to the south. Cut to just absolute downpour.
You're trying to be Billy from Twister, and
right,
failing miserably.
Going green, baby.
Greenage.
Never
been more wrong. He's a very Jonas. He's very Jonas from Twister.
Yeah, valuable information, Joe. Oh, thank you. I'll consider that.
Valuable information, Zero. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Consider it. Thank you. So we'll see if Coach ends up getting hit by a tornado.
Is Tyson the Eddie?
We'll find out. Finally, last thing we got to talk about, Josh. Memorability consultant, Josh. You get to decide what the most memorable moment of the season is. So for the pre-merge rafter through, what would you say is the most memorable moment of the season?
Well, I know we already got one nomination from Ryan.
Well, 2 nominations for me. I threw in 2.
The challenge.
Yeah,
right?
the
With
tooth and
the tooth and the challenge, and then Tyson's loincloth.
Yep.
That entire scene. I will also toss in the fire pit as another one. Derek, were there any other ones?
The 2 funniest parts to me, or I guess the one was the hype challenge where it was like the rugby, football, basketball one in the water, and if you want to like take out a spot, it's when Sandy is riding Aaron, like
bucking
Bronco, and then Taj with the stiff arm. So just that whole challenge, and then also the part that I found was like subtly the most funny was Sandy when she's like, what is a pace? And I'm like, we're on Jeopardy now. But she's just like walking around. What is a pace? She's walking the wrong direction. Hysterics. So those are my 2 nominations.
Yeah, a lot of little moments.
Yeah, nothing like really huge on the game. I think the finalist that is going to make it out of the pre-merge, though, is the fire pit at the beginning. Not one that I really expected going in, but I knew immediately once. So, like Ryan said, I only watched the premiere, merge, and finale. The second that I saw the beach and where everyone was looking, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the fire pit one.
Wow, not what I expected. Really?
Nope. But we have to respect the memory.
This is Josh's area.
Very close second place would be Tyson's loincloth.
Yeah.
The Unga Bunga. It just. Yeah, it just sits there. You can just hear his voice. It's perfect.
It lives rent free in your head.
Yes, it absolutely does. All right, so that's the end of the pre-merge. Next up is the post-merge Tocantins. So we'll see how this plays out for our winner picks. I'm very excited. Anything else, guys?
I got nothing.
I'm good.
You can follow us on Twitter at Castaway Pod. 5-star reviews and smash that subscribe button and all that fun stuff. All right, this has been the Castaway Consultants.
All I got for you is the back half of JT's tooth.
Good night.